Story 1. It seems tame compared to the rest of the thread, but there was a post basically saying, "Hey, Ray Liotta is a family friend, and he died this morning, almost 24 hours before it hit the news at all. That was a trip." Story 2. The guy who bought a watermelon had intercourse with it relentlessly, then buried it in the garden before it started to stink, only to create a little watermelon garden that his family loved. That one lives rent-free in my head. Story 3. That one guy who had been fantasizing about scat for years finally saved up some money and hired a call girl to tie him up and defecate on him. But it turned out he wasn't into scat at all in real life. Now he was just sitting in the hotel room after she'd left, writing a Reddit post and reflecting on how much time and money he had spent on it. That one was so crazy. Story 4. The Reddit thread from the woman whose husband and father-in-law were planning on her dying in childbirth and raising the baby themselves still haunts me. There was a thread where a woman's mother used coconut oil on her twin daughter's hair when one was severely allergic to coconut, which the grandmother was well aware of. She saw the child acting ill and essentially sent her granddaughter to bed to die. Story 5. The carbon monoxide story. There was a person who posted on the subreddit legal advice that they kept finding random post-it notes with weird messages around their apartment. They thought someone might be breaking in. They were seeking legal advice on how to handle the situation. A commenter replied that they should check their carbon monoxide levels to see if there was a leak causing them to do unusual things. It turned out it was carbon monoxide poisoning, and the poster was doing all of these things themselves. Story 6. Most of the drug-related subreddits can get pretty wild. One of the more depressing posts was about a girl talking about her boyfriend picking someone up to buy drugs. Originally, he was just driving across town, but then the dealer made him drive like 4 hours to another city, and the whole situation was sketchy as hell. She said her boyfriend stopped responding. A few days later, she said he still hadn't responded to her, and a day after that, the post got deleted. I'm pretty sure her boyfriend got killed or something really bad happened. Story 7. I have no idea how to find this, but I think the thread was an AskReddit asking, "Have you ever caused someone to die?" A man was a plumber's assistant installing a gas hot water heater in a family's home. To keep dust out of the heater, he had stuffed a rag into the vent. When they finished installing, he forgot to remove it. They went back the next day to finish the job, and the police had the house taped off. The entire family of 5 had died of carbon monoxide poisoning. He managed to sneak in the back door and remove the rag before anyone figured out what had happened. He never got caught. Story 8. A post where a guy confessed to murdering his girlfriend and posted photos. People called it fake and pointed out all the things they thought were fake about it. He got very angry and kept posting more, trying to prove he really did it. Then, a different person posted a police scanner clip or something similar about a shootout occurring nearby. Police officers killed the guy, and the post was proven to be real. I read that in real time as it was happening. Story 9. A few years ago, someone posted a video of a guy taking his own life with a shotgun to the face without any not safe for work filter, and it autoplayed while scrolling by. I didn't need to see that. I have no idea how it stayed up for as long as it did before moderators took it down. Story 10. A post on a fetish forum described an incident involving a man from Japan who deliberately disabled the flushing mechanism in a women's public restroom. Disguised as an elderly woman, he entered the restroom to collect waste in plastic containers. Story 11. One saw a guy attempt to trade his entire Star Wars memorabilia collection for a lifetime supply of tacos. The force was strong, but the salsa was stronger. Story 12. The post describes a big brother coming home to a family gathering and finding one of his uncles assaulting one of his younger sisters. Then it gets worse. All of the women and girls in his family were groomed and conditioned to be subservient to the men because it's their birthright. The younger sister, whom he walked in on being assaulted, is allergic to strawberries, and the male relatives who were molesting her used it to keep her obedient. He goes nuclear on the family that was complicit and fights for custody of his younger sisters. He gets full custody. Some of the women in the family who wanted to leave but were scared gained the courage to divorce their husbands and leave with their kids. A lot of the men are sent to prison. His parents try to contact him, but he's having none of it. The younger sister has to go to extensive therapy and get a service dog to help with panic attacks. The last thing I remember about the whole saga is that he and his younger sisters are all slowly recovering, but they were still getting threats from extended family members, especially towards the younger sister's service dog. They moved several states away from what I recall to keep them all safe. Story 13. There was a video of cousins 14 and 12 playing with a gun. One of them starts pointing it at the other's head, loses their grip, quickly grips it so they don't drop it, but ends up firing the gun into the other's head. They both drop out of frame, but there is another gunshot. Turns out they both died. There's not really gore because of the low-quality video and how fast it all was, but it was still jarring. That poor kid. People think they shot themselves with the second shot, but I always wonder, how do you process that quickly enough to decide to shoot yourself over it? Especially seeing as they seem to have a tenuous grasp on the concept of shooting a gun just seconds before. I don't know, I think about it a lot. Story 14. That guy accidentally soiled himself at a bus stop, which awakened a fetish. Now he wears diapers and walks around soiling himself in public. Probably a frequently shared story, but it stuck. Story 15. When I was working night shift, I was awake in the middle of the night browsing when posts about a shooting in Las Vegas appeared. I basically saw the Las Vegas shooting via the internet in real time and saw some shocking videos that I can't find anymore. People choking on blood and more. Disturbing stuff. Story 16. After 25 years of browsing the internet, this is still the craziest video I've seen. Tianjin explosion, August 12, 2015. Story 17. I posted a story about something that happened at my high school. Someone then accused me of copying another guy's story and linked it. The other guy was one of my old classmates. Story 18. There's been a lot of crazy things, but this one stuck with me. It's the infamous yellow house story. A woman told this really long story about how her neighbors painted her house while she was out on a trip. Her house was originally yellow. This one bothered me because I could never explain it. For example, Reddit is excellent at explaining what I'm looking at, from understanding why someone is acting the way they are in a public forum to how laws are being bypassed or ignored, the justice system, and so on. When there's a question, I usually find the answer in the comments. But with the yellow house story, everyone is just dumbfounded. It also bothers me because I wanted an update, and I never found one. The user never posted again, last time I checked. Guess what I'm doing after I hit comment? Edit the infamous post. I find it sometimes on YouTube videos or posts about Reddit's top 10 mysteries, crazy, or unanswered stories. Story 19. Not that crazy, but there was a post with a guy asking how to change the default language on Reddit because everything had switched to Spanish. Everybody responded to the thread in Spanish. So proud of you guys for that. Story 20. Did we ever get to the bottom of the guy who noticed his socks were slowly going missing and realized his girlfriend was using them to wipe herself? When he asks her about it, she avoids the question, and when he gets back from work later that day, her sister is there packing all her stuff and he never sees her again. Story 21. That guy's story about how he was playing video games with noise-canceling headphones on and didn't know his wife was being assaulted downstairs by a home intruder. Story 22. Literally last night in the subreddit True Off My Chest. There was a post where someone said that a friend of theirs was arrested for distributing material of her own children. 5 of them, all under 11. It's absolutely sick. Story 23. Found out my cousin was tortured to death on Reddit. Saw his body posted on some world news type of subreddit accidentally. I never met him, but he looked like a clone of my dad, which gave me pause because I know our family resemblance is pretty strong due to our marriage practices. Anyway, then I realized from the name and asking around that yes, my initial concern was right, he was definitely my cousin. Never got to know him, but he seemed like a good one. He died as a consequence of standing up for the right thing. Story 24. The video of Alada in the Ukrainian war zone getting directly hit by a suicide drone and driving out of the giant cloud of dust and smoke as if nothing ever happened. Dog, the Ukraine war proves that Soviet-era cars were just built differently, like maximum level durability. Story 25. I saw this video a couple of months ago of a guy being crushed by an elephant like a soda can. Like imagine crushing a soda can with your feet. That's exactly what it did to that guy. The guy was hitting it with a stick, though, so he was kind of asking for something to happen. Story 26. That man confessed that his wife beat their child nearly to death because their child had almost killed their newborn, and he was happy his wife did it because he has a psychopathic child. Story 27. A story of how a man disowned his son because he went bad. The son started hanging out with the wrong crowd, getting into drugs, and getting into trouble with the law. The final straw was when he raped his own mother by knife point, which led to her suicide. The son stays with his aunt and claims to have turned his life around and is in his late 20s. But the father said he'd never forgive him and considers him dead. The aunt is trying to get the father to forgive his son, so he can get him out of her house since he's stealing from her. Story 28. There was an Ask Me Anything where this person signed a 1-year contract to be a free-use personal slave to this super rich guy for a large amount of money. Zero contact with family for the full year. She lived in a kennel, wore a collar, and crawled on her hands and knees for most of the year. When her time of the month came, her employer would be the one to change her dressings. It was the wildest thread I have ever come across on here. Story 29. Lady with dementia was forced to live in a time loop of the time when her husband and baby were killed in a car wreck while she was in the hospital giving birth. Story 30. It was literally days after I started using Reddit in 2014. I hit the random button on the top of the webpage. Landed on cute dead girls. At first, I thought it was kind of like trees with its naming convention. Nope, the first link I clicked, it's a picture of a naked dead woman on the slab already sporting a Y scar on her chest. Story 31. The video of the guy who shoots both of his neighbors in the middle of the street after arguing about snow shoveling. I feel like that one has been pretty scrubbed from the internet, but that was wild. Story 32. Jolly Rancher. The Reddit user who fried her own shed uterine lining like bacon upon another user's suggestion. The dad who found out his son was sexually abusing the family dog. Story 33. The infamous poop knife story. A man casually mentioned that his family kept a dedicated knife for cutting up large stools that wouldn't flush. He thought this was normal until Reddit told him otherwise. Story 34. The body camera video of the knife fight between the Ukrainian and Russian soldier made the color leave my face and I was sick to my stomach. I was in my work truck on break, and I had to stop the video, roll down my window, and focus on my breathing. I've seen it all. The suicide videos, the Islamic State throat cutting, the Russian worker getting turned into confetti by an industrial lathe. None of them hold a candle to the knife fight video. No words can do it justice, in my opinion. That video is absolutely gut-wrenching in every category, and I truly do not recommend it to anybody, regardless of tolerance level. Story 35. Mexican cartel execution and torture videos that show decapitation and people getting their faces peeled while they are still alive. The list goes on. Cartels are truly pure evil. It really disturbed me for a while when I saw the first one. Story 36. I have seen a lot of crazy stuff posted on here. So much that I honestly do not know what the craziest thing is, but one story I came across again just today is about the guy who thought he had a scat fetish and hired an escort to live out his fantasy. He paid her $3,000, I believe, to defecate in his mouth, and he immediately regretted his decision afterward. Do not ask me how I came across that story in the first place. I do not know. Story 37. Somebody openly stating that he regularly harmed children, actual children, not just under 18. It was in a thread of mine that's coming up on 2 years old now. I tried to find it, but it looks like the moderators got to it. Story 38. There was one I read in the last year or so. A straight guy was at a hotel or something and decided to perform oral sex on a stranger for money and kind of enjoyed it. Some time passes and the man invited him to Russia, maybe Mongolia, and was going to pay for it. The guy was seriously considering it until a bunch of people came out saying that this was a super common method for sex trafficking and he probably shouldn't do it. Story 39. I remember the Christchurch mosque shootings. I remember seeing it in the news that something was going on, and I scrolled Reddit without thinking. I ended up stumbling upon the video of the shooting literally hours after it had taken place. It was absolutely surreal. Story 40. I was a big fan of the one where a guy noticed his beans going missing. His girlfriend was going outdoors to nearby woods, I think, and burying them so they would be accessible for survival if they ever needed them. Story 41. I once saw someone post about how they found out their roommate was secretly living in their attic for months, just watching them and taking notes on their life. The roommate was actually a psychology major doing an experiment. Story 42. I saw this a few weeks ago where a Chiefs fan was comparing their experience as a fan to a Jewish person during World War II. Story 43. The person who posted about his wife cheating on him with the neighbor, and she ended up killing the children. I wish it wasn't true. Story 44. A woman on Reddit vegan who wouldn't let her kids ride on the merry-go-round horses because she didn't want to normalize the enslavement of animals. I guess she doesn't feel like her kids can tell the difference between a real, living animal and a piece of plastic.